Hi, everyone, and welcome to this fourth episode of the Back to Basics with Web Development live stream series as part of Hands-on SAP Dev. I hope the connection is good. I hope you can hear me well. Please leave a hi in the chat if you're here. Just want to make sure the audio is good. We had some issues with the audio in the past, so it would be cool to just confirm that we're all good on that front. And yeah, you can see that I have the Christmas decoration up already. We are in the final episode for this year. At least we're going to take a little break for the holiday season. And yeah, this fourth episode will also wrap it up in terms of following this super freestyle approach that we've been using the past three and now the fourth episode. So we basically built everything from scratch, and it was arguably hard work, like a lot of, a lot of code and a lot of, things you have to think about and make sure you have the correct error messages and, custom CSS classes and all of that. And in the next year, we will then get started with the more SAP specific technologies like CAP and UI5. And hopefully that will show how much you get for free when you use these technologies, because of all the things that we had to do manually, we can now, we now get for free, in terms of security and bugs, and more code is more bugs, and we wrote quite a lot of code for very little outcome, I guess you could say. All right, so there's no comments in the chat yet. I'll just go to YouTube and find the stream and make sure that it is good. Okay, that looks good. Okay, so we are going to talk about web components today, and more specifically UI5 Web Components. But before we do that, let's quickly go into the project, like start the server and see where we're at. Here we are. All right, let's increase the font size a little bit. Maybe like that. I think that's fine. We're going to need some real estate today here. Okay, so let me do an npm run dev real quick. Server is running on port 3000. And let's open the localhost 3000. Here you are. Okay. So that's where we're at. We created the totally fictitious Hands-on SAP Dev web shop. Obviously, all these buttons here, they don't do anything. The only thing that does work is that we have these links to the specific products here. And if I click on one of those, it goes to the product / then the ID route. And that is hooked up to the product.html file, right? And that just renders this title and the price of the product, which is fine for now. And that's all good, but we want to, good morning, yep, stream looking good. Okay, thanks Marco, and hi. So that looks all good. What we want to do now is we want to make this all a little prettier, I guess you could say. And why don't we create like for each product, we want to create a little card here, like a little product card that, has the image of the product and shows the price and maybe shows a rating as well. And then if you click on that card, you get to the detail page of that product. And what we could do now, obviously, let's go into the server and the public and then the index HTML. In the little script thingy that we have here, that's where we fetch all the products from the backend, right? And then from the result, we construct a tag, like a link, an HTML link, just set the reference to the /product ID, and then we set the text content to the product name, and we put that into the wrapper thingy. Okay, but what we could do here is we could, of course, now create a div container, then put a title in there, put an image in there, and then potentially we could also put a custom rating thing, like could build all that logic on our own. But since that is this product card is something that we want to reuse potentially at least 3 times, right? Because we have 3 products, and maybe for other projects we want to reuse it as well, or we want to reuse it in some other place inside our app as well. That is really a perfect use case for a web component. So now you might ask the question, what is a web component? And a web component, you could think of it as a custom HTML element. So I am in the HTML part right here, and if I was to create a web component that's just called product card, and I can just make that name up, and we'll actually do exactly that in just a few minutes, then I can use it like that. I can just say it's a product card like that. And then I can also specify like new attributes I want this new element to have, like a product ID, for example, and then I can set whatever ID. Or I could think of any other product, any other attribute that this product card might have, and then implement that as part of my web component, and then the product card web component would know what to do with that ID, right? For example, construct the link and things like that. So web components are essentially custom HTML elements that you can build, and they are natively supported by the browser, right? That's the good part. So it just runs in the browser, it's just there, and it just works, which is beautiful, and at least in all the modern browsers, right? So you can essentially build your own HTML elements and then reuse them wherever you want, right? And this is obviously an awesome technology or feature or thing you can use. It's not new, of course. Like we have UI5 controls. Like if we think about the UI5 framework itself, we have controls in there, and in their philosophy, they're very much like web components, but obviously their technology is a little older. Like they've been around for 11 years now. Web components are a little newer than that. So the philosophy and the whole idea behind it is not new, but now that web components are natively supported by browsers, obviously UI5, the team, the framework, thought about, okay, what can we do with this? Since we now not have to rely on our framework to render a control or web component, this thing, we can let the browser do it. So why don't we build our new controls as web components as well, right? And that's exactly what they did. And with that, they actually came up with a whole new library of controls, the UI5 Web Components. Okay, so I'm in the UI5 Web Components documentation here, and we can just check out the components itself. So we have all the so-called bread and butter things that we know from UI5, like from UI5 framework and the control library. We have all of these as web components as well. For example, the button, and if we scroll down, we can see some examples, and then we can also see how we use them. And you can see that it is this custom HTML element here, always prefixed with UI5 dash, and then the button, and then the calendar, card, whatever, like all these things. Okay, so those are the bare bones web components, the UI5 web components. And now for all the major frameworks that you might want to build your application in, for example, React, Angular, these frameworks, UI5 web components actually have an additional wrapper layer, like the UI5 web components for React, and the respective frameworks. So you can use these web components directly inside your React application, for example. So now we've come full circle. We can now essentially build UI5 applications in any framework, which is pretty cool. What we can also do is we cannot use any framework at all, right? And that's exactly what we're going to do next, I think, at least. I took some notes. Let me see. We're actually going to start with something else, but we're going to get into the using no framework and using the UI5 Web Components on their own. We're going to get to that. Okay, so cool. So we're back in our project, and let me go back to the browser. So I talked about this product card that we want to build here, right? So we have a web shop, and if I zoom out a little bit, that's probably more what it would look like for a user, because I'm obviously heavily zoomed in here, so you can, or the browser window is super small because so it looks good on screen. But yeah, we want to build this product card, and part of that product card is also going to be UI5 styled things in itself, right? So think about the product image, and then below I said we want to have like a rating thing. So instead of recreating that rating, logic and UI, we can actually scroll down here in the UI5 Web Components list, rating indicator. We want to use this thing right here, right? Because it just looks perfectly fine and it works, and there's no point in reinventing the wheel. So we want to reuse this thing, and also potentially want to have a button inside that product card. And these buttons that we have here, they're pretty ugly, right? So why don't we just use a UI5 button? So we can use this button that I already showed you. The standard UI5 button, it's everywhere, and we want to use that. But our current application, we build our Node.js server from scratch, and then we basically just created an index.html file that, let me delete this product card here. And we just created an index.html and a product.html. We do all the logic and all the hard work. We do it sort of manually, and it's actually not that common to have this use case, like just have an HTML file and do all of that in there, and now slap web components on top of that. That's actually not very common. Not very common to do that. Usually we will build our front end with some sort of framework, run it on a separate web server, or run it on the same web server, but take the effort and hook the front end and back end up properly, instead of just running it all as just one Node.js process. Just have a Node.js server and then serving an HTML file. That's not how you would build like a real full-size application. But anyway, I'm going to show you a way now how we can still use UI5 Web Components, in this setup here. But it's more of an experiment, and it's more of a, see, this works. Isn't that cool? It's not, advice to really do that in production, and you'll see why as well. Okay. Anyway, a lot of talking for 14 minutes about web components and our project. We're going to build this product card thingy in just a second. But before we want to do that, as we want to use UI5 Web Components as part of our product cards as well, we first have to get UI5 Web Components in this project right here. Okay. And what we can do here, if we check out the web component documentation here, we can always see how we can import the respective controls or web components. For example, for the button, we have to say import, and then import this button. Okay, but where is this coming from, the UI5 Web Components thing? Well, it usually comes from NPM. So usually we declare our web components as part of our dependencies in the package.json. And then when we run an npm install, it will go into the npm registry, download the code, and then we can say, this import here. And then we usually have some sort of JavaScript bundler that, takes that and translates or transforms that into something that runs in the browser. We have all the dependencies there and it all just works, right? Well, we don't have that step, right? We just have an HTML file and we do not declare our front-end dependencies in the package.json because our package.json is just for the Node.js server itself, right? It's not for the front-end part. Nothing, gets, unless we do that explicitly, nothing gets sent to the front end from the Node.js sort of backend, unless we manually say that, which we do, by the way, in the index.js here. We scroll down, we say that the default route should serve the server public directory, and the product/ID should serve the product HTML. Okay, so there's still a way to get the web components in this HTML, in this bare bones HTML. And this is by using an import map. And I will copy some code over real quick. So here in the body, I'll just paste some code over. Let's indent that properly. Okay, so what I pasted in here is two new script tags. The first one is of type import map. And an import map, and I pulled out the documentation here. Can I get rid of this menu bar here? No. Okay, so the import map, like a script of type import map, is a JSON object that allows developers to control how the browser resolves module specifiers when importing JavaScript modules. Okay, so we can now provide sort of aliases for our imports. So whenever we say this right here, whenever we say UI5 Web Components base dist, when we import something from that prefix, we actually point to this piece right here, this URL. And unpackage is a service that essentially just serves npm packages in a CDN style way. So we can point to unpackage to this URL, and unpackage will download the code from npm for us and then serve it at this URL. So now we say whenever we import something from here, it actually points to there. And then down here at the bottom, it's a regular module, like a JavaScript module script tag. And in here, we can use this code that we also saw from the documentation. For example, we can import the UI5 Web Components dist button, okay, which is this right here. Okay, where are we? Here, okay. So this is the import map. Import maps are quite new, I think, at least, yeah, well, I stumbled across them quite recently. And to be honest, I don't see, like me personally, I don't see any like real productive use case for them, but I think it's the perfect fit for our project here, just to get the UI5 Web Components inside this bare bones HTML setup that we have. So now that we have imported the title, the button, the text, the rating indicator, all of these, and a few icons as well, we can use these web components in our HTML code, right? So for example, what do we have here? Right, so this button, right, the account button and the cart button, we'll just turn these into UI5 buttons now. So let's see. Let's turn these into UI5 buttons. Let's see. Oh, and that works, see? So now in the header at the top, we now have proper UI5 buttons in there, which is nice. And since we also imported the icons here, the customer and the cart icon, let's not call it account, but let's say icon is equal to the SAP icon customer. And then we also set a design which should be transparent. right? And now the first button is transparent, and it is in fact just an icon. Okay, nice. And these custom HTML attributes that you see here, like design and icon, are the ones that I talked about before. So for our product card web component that we're eventually going to build, that will be the product ID and the product name. So these are made up, right? These are made up by the UI5 Web Components developers in this case. So these are not things that come with HTML, in its raw form. These are part of the web components. But still, the raw HTML attributes like class or ID, those still work, right? So think of HTML, think of web components as extending native HTML elements. And that's exactly the syntax as well. So when you define web components, you literally say class, my web component, blah, blah, extends HTML element, okay? Cool. So I will do the same for the other button here. I just copied some code over here, and then I will also style the other elements with web components. So let me copy some code over again. I think it's this piece right here. Yeah, and then we just have to indent it again. Okay, so I put a UI5 text as well in here for a totally fictitious text, and then a UI5 title for the web shop text, another text for the let's learn and shop together, and then a UI5 button for the view all products thing. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, nice. So I'm not sure if it comes across in the stream, but the text right here, that is now the 72 font from SAP. So it's not the default, I don't even know what the default font is in this browser, but the other one, the old school one. And this one as well. And now the view all products thing that doesn't do anything, by the way, that is also the UI5 button, right? And it's the design emphasized, the emphasized design right here. Okay, so that is now using web components in a HTML file that is just sent to the client as is. Okay. And Marco, I think Marco, I hope you're still there. At least you said something in the chat. I think you used the import maps as well, right? I saw that on X a couple of weeks ago. So that was just the time where I was playing around with this here as well. So that was good timing. Okay, so that is using web components. And now that we have the web components as part of our application, we can use them when we're building our own web component. Okay, so let's get into that now. So I will, instead of overloading this HTML file here, I will create a new JavaScript file, and let me just link to it from this file right here. So I will say a new script, and that sits at, we'll just call it my product card.js. Close it, save it, and now we can create this new file. So my product card.js. And by the way, we could have done the same thing with this with the script below, like where we fetch the product, and of course we could have done, extracted that and put it in a separate JavaScript file. But yeah, I think it was just cool to have one HTML file at the point. But I think now it makes sense to put the web component in a separate file, because the whole nature of web components is to be reusable and to be reused in other projects and things like that. So having it in a separate file just makes sense. And eventually we might want to, publish it to NPM or somewhere where people can consume it. So, it needs to be it needs to have its own, place. Okay. So now let's get into the web component implementation. So as I said before, building a new web component starts with defining a new class and then giving it a name, for example, product card, and then that one extends the HTML element, okay? And that's how we get all the native HTML things like the ID and the class and it's being rendered and all that. That's how we get all of that into our new web component. And then the constructor of that thingy is, oh boy, it's just calling the superclass, obviously. And then we define a shadow root. And yeah, well, to be honest, I don't really know too much about the shadow root, to be honest, except for the fact that, well, it's a pretty good name, I guess you could say, for what it is. It's like it creates a new DOM, like a document object. What's DOM for? HTML DOM. Document object model. Okay, so if you inspect any web page, so if you inspect any web page, you can see the HTML elements, right, in your DevTools here. So we can see our header, we can see the main welcome thing here, and we can see the script tags even and all of that. Document object model. Yep, thank you. Are you able to please upload a GitHub repo? Will be very useful. Yep, I got that question quite often. The thing is, so yes, I will eventually do it. The thing is, it's just so much work because now, my notes that I have here, they're just, my notes. And if I was to create a GitHub repo, I would want a README for every episode that basically describes what I do in the live stream as well. But I don't want to just put code there, so I want to explain it, explain what I do and all that, and that just takes so much time to explain it well, because I don't want to, half-ass it. I want to do it properly if I do it. So, yeah, probably over the holiday break, I'll take the time and write proper READMEs and put explanations there and put links there, and all of that. So yeah, I will do that. And that will probably be in the SAP samples GitHub organization then. Okay, cool. So if you inspect any web page, you can see the DOM here, the document object model. And if you then now go into a web component here, for example, for the UI5 text, you can see that there's sort of there is a shadow root in here. So it is a separate DOM, I guess you could say. Probably not the right term, but that's what it feels like. There's a separate DOM in here that sits there, but it points to somewhere else. Like that's just the way it renders, but it's not like part of the real DOM. So you can't, for example, find these elements if you do a document query selector and then try to find elements inside there. I mean, I guess you can with some tricks, but not it's not how it's supposed to be, right? So anyway, the web component has a shadow root, which works sort of like a DOM inside the DOM, and that's where the web component implementation lives, but it's sort of a nested structure. That's the best explanation I can come up with. And that was enough for me to make this work and work with web components in general. So I'm sure you can dig deep into that and really understand it. But yeah, well, that understanding that I just gave you is enough to use them. Okay, so back to our implementation. We define a shadow root. So we use this attached shadow and then mode open. And I have to be honest with you, I have no idea what open and closed, what the difference is. It's probably just one quick Google search away, but we're just going to proceed. Okay, and now for this shadow root, we can now set an inner HTML. What's up with my typing today? So we can set an inner HTML, and this is now where we implement our web component. Okay, and oh, 1 second, I have to read a message here real quick. I'll put you on a secret mode now. 1 second. Okay, we're back, we're back. Okay, so in our web component implementation, we will start out with a few styles, okay? So, where are we? So I just put a few styles in here. So this is just standard, I don't like how this is indented. I think this is how it, yeah. Okay, so this is just standard CSS stuff here. So we have a CSS class called card, and we set a width, height, a padding. By the way, took me way too long to understand the difference between padding and margin. In case you're new, in case you don't know this, I'm going to save you some time. So margin is outside of the element. So if you set a margin of 10 pixels outside, that is, you know, a little gap, like a space outside of the element, right? And the padding is inside the element. So that's the space, you know, from the border of the element, you know, towards the inside. That's the padding, and outside is margin. Maybe you all know this. It took me way too long to really understand this. So we just have some, you know, standard CSS stuff in here, and we talked about CSS in the previous episode. And this card class also has this hover, I think it's called a pseudo class. I think that's what it is when you use this colon thing. So whenever someone hovers over a card, you know, that card changes its styling. So it has an outline with like a new border, like outline is like a border. But again, outline I think is not adding to the width and height of the element. A border adds, you know, whatever the border is, like 1 pixels, 2 pixels, whatever, it adds that to the element, but the outline doesn't. And then we set a little shadow thingy for the element as well. And all the elements inside the card should have the pointer cursor. The pointer cursor is, so if I hover over the button here now, you can see that the cursor changes into this hand thingy, which indicates that you can do something there, right? So that's the pointer, and then all the images have a fixed height. Okay, so that's all the styling for our web component. Now we want to implement the HTML inside that shadow, right? So I put a wrapping A tag here, a wrapping link, just so that the whole card itself is a link. So I can click wherever in the card, and that will open the product page. So I can click wherever on this product card, and that will open the detail page of the product. I think there's nothing worse than if you're online shopping and you're trying to get to a product, but only the title of that product will get you to the product. Like clicking on the image won't work, or you know, clicking right next to the title won't work. Like if you only have to click just the title to get to the product page, I think that's painful. So just wrapping the whole thing in an A tag fixes that, and then setting the link, you know, on that A tag. And then inside we have this card, where we use this card class for a div container, and then we just set an image, a title, another title, and then the rating indicator. Okay, so that's our implementation. But as you can see, the link, for example, the wrapping link, it doesn't have any href attribute, right? And the image doesn't have any source as well, because that will then come into the web components as part of an attribute that the developer defines, right? So we are let me just go into the, yeah, well, I'll save it, close it real quick. So we're gonna use our web component similar to that. So it'll be something like my product cart. Oh, well, that was a bad suggestion. My product, so something like that, and then we are going to set a product ID, and then this is going to be, whatever. And then the web component will take that product ID and put it into this H tag here as part of the link, right? And this is what we're going to implement next. So let me just go back into the index.html and clean this up. Okay, so by the way, do we have any questions in the chat? Nope. Okay. I have to rearrange my windows here real quick. There we are. Okay. Good, 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 good. Okay, so let's now make sure that the web component can actually consume or get the attributes that a developer defines. Now I close my notes. Here we are again. Okay, and for that, we're going to use a built-in method that's called connected callback. And all I know about this is that this is automatically triggered. It's like a lifecycle hook of a web component. And whenever that happens, we want to call a method called update content, which which we'll define now. So update content is a method that takes no arguments, and what it does is it gets the so from the shadow root we get the tags that we defined up at the top. So for example, the link, and then we set the href to, and this is now pretty cool. So we set it to, product or product slash, and then we use this, template literal syntax, I think it's called. This this ID. So, what's wrong here? What's wrong here? Yeah, we haven't closed the constructor method. Yep, okay. So this ID will be, now I go back into let me undo the changes here. So we're not going to call it product ID, we're just going to call it ID, okay? And this ID, we'll call it just, whatever. And this ID will be, in fact, this ID. So this, not syntax this ID will be the syntax this ID, okay? So we're just going to replicate the same thing for the image and for the title, for the two titles, and for the rating indicator as well. Okay, so in here we get the image and set a source to an image and then this ID, and we have to create these images in just a second. And then we get the title, and now we have to get all of it because we have more than one title, right? We have two titles here, so we have to get them all. And then the first one, we set a text content to a name, and then the second title, which is a little smaller, so it's heading 6, is it's just a price and the currency. So it will be a bigger font saying the product name, and then a little smaller font, it will say the price and the currency. And then we use the UI5 rating indicator as well and set a value to this rating, okay? So let's use this web component. And I showed you previously that we can use it like that, like use it in the HTML in the HTML syntax. And now we could set, you know, a name to, you know, product one, whatever. Like we could, you know, hard code it that way. But the way we previously used or constructed these links, so if we check our application out here, these links are constructed via, like, programmatically via JavaScript, right? So we, in here, we just create an A tag and set a link. So we will now remove that. So it's not a link now. Oh, copy some code over. So it's not a link now. Oh, wrong direction. Or this way. Okay. So instead of creating a link, we create a new element called my product card. And then, oh, by the way, I forgot one thing. Okay, but let's finish this one right here. So we're going to create a new element called my product card and then set all these attributes that we also defined in the web component implementation, like the ID, name, price, currency, blah, blah, blah. And then we append this thing to the wrapper. Okay. But I know that I forgot one thing in the web component implementation, and that is actually registering this new web component as a custom element. So we have to call, and that is below the class implementation. So, you know, this is the class implementation. Just after that, we say custom elements, which seems to be a global variable, define, or a global object rather. We say my product card, and that is, you know, product card, our class from up top. Okay, so let's save that, and let's also save the index.html, and let's see, let's refresh the page, and oh, that doesn't look too bad. Okay, cool. So we now do have our products here, our product card. And we can see, if I hover over it, you know, we see the pointy cursor, and we also see the shadow. So all this CSS styling obviously works. We see the slightly bigger title here, which is the heading 4, slightly smaller title, heading 6. And then we also see the rating indicator. It's empty as of now, and we'll get to that. And also, obviously, the images don't work. Okay, so let me first copy over the images. Okay, so obviously I've prepared some images. Let's refresh. Okay, cool. So the images, as we can see here, so we just set the ID of the web component, and then in the web component implementation, we get this ID and set it as the source for the image, and then we set a path which is /images/the ID.png. So I obviously pasted or copied over the corresponding images with their IDs into this images directory. Okay, so that works. That looks pretty cool. 1 second. Okay, so now let's get to the rating. And the reason why we don't see any rating just yet is that because our data just simply doesn't contain any ratings yet. So let's just add for all these products. So now I'm in the data.js thing here, so I'll add a rating. Oh, let's stay consistent with the syntax here. So this can actually be a number. So the rating for the cardboard cutout from Josh Bentley is a 5, obviously. And then the rating for the coffee mug, let's give it a 4.5. And then the rating for the t-shirt, well, let's give the coffee mug a rating of 4. And then the t-shirt gets a 4.5. Okay, so let's save all of that. Let's refresh. And now we can see that the value of the rating indicator is correct. Okay, let's click on one of those and that works as well. Okay, nice. So that was our first web component. And the cool thing is that obviously all the web component implementation is in a separate file. It's in this product car.js. So I can take this to my next project, use it there. And what's also cool is, I think, is that we nested web components. Not sure if you noticed, but our web component implementation itself contains web components, the UI5 Web Components. I think that's pretty cool. And obviously the UI5 team does that as well when they implement, if we check out the docs again, if they implement something like the calendar, I guess the calendar has buttons. Yeah. So the calendar itself uses UI5 buttons and, just makes sense. But just worth pointing out. I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so that was first using or consuming the UI5 Web Components via the import map, which, as I said, is, I don't want to call it a hack, but it's not something I would do in production. And then we build our own web component, which I would definitely do in production. So definitely, yeah, try that out yourself. I think it's pretty cool. And now, obviously, the question is, how would we consume the UI5 Web Components in production in a real scenario? And to just give you a little kickstart here, and I'm sure it's somewhere maybe in the playground. Probably it's in the docs. Getting started, first steps, ES6 import, creating. Oh yeah, interesting. It's doing the same thing here, or it's instructing you to do the same thing, which I was going to do anyway here. So we're going to use Vite now to create a simple application that consumes the UI5 Web Components, properly, and properly is quote unquote, because the import maps are quite cool, but they're also quite new and come with a few hiccups as well. Sometimes it just takes ages to load because it goes to the CDN and blah blah blah. Okay, so let's create a new Vite application, and yeah, I'll just create. Yeah, should we do that on root level here? I think so. So I'll just say npm create Vite at latest. And that is okay to proceed. I want to install Vite. And the project name, Vite project, is actually a good name. And now we're going to use vanilla. So no framework, nothing, because that's what we do. And then we're going to use JavaScript for now. And now we have this new directory here, Vite project. And the way we set up the project here now with the nested Vite project inside our actual project doesn't make any sense at all. But that's just the setup that I have here right now. And we're going to delete the Vite project afterwards anyway. So this is just a little left turn that we'll make, and we're going to go back to the actual project very soon. So this Vite project, I'm gonna go into the Vite project and open that. So inside the Vite project, we say npm install, and then we can see that the Vite project also has a public directory, by the way. So that's where the naming convention comes in. Public directories are always the ones that are just being served, just being sent to the client as is, like with no changes. They're also called static resources. So now I can say, what does it gave me some instructions, didn't it? Yeah, npm run dev. Okay, so localhost 5173, let's go there, 5173. Okay, oh, we have a new Vite application. Okay, and there's a little counter here. Cool. But we are going to delete all of that. So we're going to delete the counter.js, the JavaScript image. In the main JavaScript file, we are, let me see, is there anything we need in here? I don't think so. We're just going to delete it all. And then the style.css, yeah, let's get rid of that as well. And in the indexed HTML, we are, yeah, we can keep most of it. We're just going to delete the one div thing that had the app ID. Because what I want to do now is I want to use a, yeah, and obviously that doesn't work. Okay. What we do now is we use a sample here from the UI5 Web Components documentation. I think a good one is the dialog. So the UI5 dialog. And it has a sample here. So we click on the button and it opens a dialog. Nice. So if I click on edit now, I get the HTML code for that. So let me just copy that over, put that in here. Okay, nice. And I will not, go into the details of this now. I'll just copy it over. I mean, you can check out the sample in the docs yourself. And then I will copy over the JavaScript as well and put that in my main.js file. And this playground thingy I don't need. That was just for how this sample is embedded in this docs here, in this document. And then we need the CSS as well, right? And we do have a CSS in here. So let's see if that works. So let's save all of that. And now we get an issue that the import doesn't work. Failed to resolve import UI5 Web Components. And that makes total sense because we haven't imported, like we haven't declared our dependencies at all, right? So if we check out the package.json, there's only one dependency really here, which is Vite itself. And in our previous setup, so if we go back one level up, so in our web shop, in our Hands-on SAP Dev web shop, we use the import map here to declare our dependencies, which is one way of doing it. But now for the Vite project, oh, that's the wrong package.json. Now for the Vite project, we can just use npm simply to install the web components dependencies. So I'll just say npm I web components. Let's see. Okay, open it again. Now we do have a dependency to the UI5 Web Components, and that is straight from npm. And now we do have the code for that in the node modules directory. So now we can see that it has downloaded the UI5 Web Components, as well as the UI5 Web Components base, the icons, theming, and all of that. That's cool. So instead of pointing to a CDN like we did with the import map, we now have the web component implementation locally now in here in our node modules, and Vite will use that to do some magic with it and then send it to the browser. Pleased to see we're exploring web components, and it's only part 4 of the series. Yeah, it's only part 4, correct. Next time we're gonna go into probably CAP a little bit just to get started, have a working backend, and then we're going to go into UI5 and a lot of other things along the way, I guess. And maybe a little preview now. So the UI5 2.x is coming at some point, and they said that they're going to have native web component support as part of UI5 as well. So how cool would it be if we could use our product card, for example, inside a UI5 application, like a real UI5 application with all the data binding and the service connectivity and the I18N and all the good stuff we get for free with UI5. if that gets combined with the power of web components, that will be just perfect. Okay, so we now declared our dependency. We have the code locally. Vite will do some magic with it and provide it to the client. Let's do npm run dev again. We get no errors, and we do get the dialog button. So let's open it. Okay, well, looks a little off, but whatever. Okay, I think that is because the CSS file wasn't. We're not referencing the CSS file anywhere. So the CSS file is a static file after all. So I think I'll just, so we will just move the source style.css into public style.css. Right, so I now moved the CSS file into the public directory. That makes sense in my head because it is a static file, doesn't change at all. It's always being sent to the client. So then we obviously have to link to it from our index HTML. Link rel. Oh, come on, Copilot, give me some help. Ah. Oh, I stopped the server. Let's restart it. Okay, that looks better. Okay, so now it is picking up the CSS file. Now all the input fields are perfectly aligned. Okay, cool. So to wrap up with the topic of web components and UI5 Web Components, we started out just using the UI5 Web Components in a bare bones HTML file using import maps, which is pretty neat, but I wouldn't do it in production. And then we built our own web component. Let's just check that out real quick again. So that was one level up, and then npm run dev, I think localhost 3000. So this is our own web component. The product card right here, I think that's pretty cool as well. And then we also used the UI5 Web Components, the way they're supposed to, quote unquote, supposed to be consumed in a Vite project, which is very nice. And if you haven't tried Vite, I think you should do. That it's very nice, and it's the fastest thing out there to get you started with a web server and with proper bundling and consuming web components straight from npm and all of that good stuff. So yeah, that's the three things we did today. And as I said, we're going to take a little holiday break now, and we're going to get back to it next year, probably beginning with January, with more SAP specific things. This was also had some SAP flavor to it today with the UI5 Web Components, but next year we're going to go into get into CAP and UI5, and we're going to see how much we get for free. We had to do a lot of manual CSS work here in JavaScript magic to get this up and running, but with the proper frameworks, it will be a lot easier. Okay. So that's it for today. Thanks everyone for watching, for tuning in, and yeah, very much looking forward to seeing you next year. And I will take the holiday break to put this all in the GitHub repo, so you can check out the code and also have proper readmes, with all the explanations and all of that. Okay, so thanks everyone, and yeah, let me get the outro animation ready. And with that, bye-bye.